Hi guys. Yes, Morning Soulshine is on Instagram Live tonight, and we have a very, very special guest, and her name is Sandra Orndorff, and she is going to be with us in a few moments. There she is. Hi. Can you send me a request to come on? I'm not quite sure. Let's see if I can send you. Hi. Yeah, we have a very, very special guest. Hi.
Hello, hello.
Hi. I'm so glad you're here with me tonight.
I'm glad to be here.
Do you think we can get some people on? I don't really know how to do a invite. Do you know how?
Let's see if we can figure this out.
Okay. How was your day today?
My day was well. It's so interesting to get to actually see your face because
I know.
we've only been
Yeah, we
we've only been audio.
I know. I wonder why it doesn't show us the whole list of our friends to invite.
Let's see, share video. Okay.
See, on my end, I can't. Let's see. Oh, maybe I could share here. Oh, okay. I could share here. Uh, Yay. I'm so excited about tonight for our interview. This is going to be amazing. I'm going to sit back and just let you teach tonight because this is going to be such a very interesting conversation.
Well, I was trying to remember some of the things that we were talking about, and then you actually put part of, I guess, I'm impressed by your technology wizard there. That you must have gone into Clubhouse and taken some of the piece of that time that we were
Oh,
talking.
yeah. I did the
Yeah.
clip. I took some of the
Hmm.
clip. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was pretty exciting. Oh, we have so much to talk about. And the Enneagram is very, it's a mystery to me.
Mhm. Oh, okay.
It's like it's so interesting, but it's a mystery. Because it's like, hmm, it's hard to understand how to actually, all the different pieces of it.
Yeah. It's that's the beauty of the Enneagram, but it's also the part that
Hi, Marcel.
I guess I would call it the barrier to entry. You know,
Okay.
it actually can sometimes be a little bit of a barrier to entry for others to be able to access it, just because they feel like it's too complex. It's going to take.
Yeah, that's where I went. Let me introduce you
Okay.
so that way, they'll understand what we're talking about. So tonight, guys, on Morning Soulshine, we have with us Miss Sandra Orndorff. Did I say
Hmm.
that right?
You
Oh, I
did.
did
Yep.
it right. Okay. Sandra Orndorff. And she is a certified Enneagram coach and an embodiment coach. So, for our listeners, what is the Enneagram coach and what is an embodiment coach? Embodiment coach.
Sure. Well, the Enneagram coach is working with the Enneagram, helping you understand your own personality. So sometimes that's people who feel like maybe there's something in their life that they just can't, they're having a hard time getting through. We can
Mm-hmm.
use the Enneagram as a way of um, sort of bringing something that might have a lot of energy charge to it.
Mm-hmm.
We can put it in terms of a little bit of neutrality by being able to look at the personality
Mm-hmm.
in a way that the ego can kind of hear it and accept it. I'm going to take my glasses off just because it's glaring. Um,
Okay. So
so
when was the Enneagram developed and who was the creators of it?
yeah, well they actually go back. They think that it's a spiritual tool of to antiquity.
Okay.
They've been able to trace it back 2,500 years.
Really?
There's aspects of it that show up in the Egyptian hieroglyphic, different symbology that relates to it. Greek mythology, Pythagorean, the Pythagorean theorem, right? Sacred geometry. He was part of the sacred geometry, the hexagon and the triangle in the middle. So I'll just put up a picture. So this symbology is the Enneagram. It's the circle, and then there's a hexagon, and then there's the triangle in the middle. So that symbology is actually dates back to 2,500 years ago. The actual labeling and the personality part of it is more modern. Gurdjieff, German, and just lost his name. This is really bad. They were in Chile, and they were part of like a spiritual development around the time of like World War I was happening. And so they went up in the mountains, and they wanted, the spiritual awakening. And what they noticed is when they, quote unquote, came down off the mountain, different people got constricted in different ways. And modern psychology then took that and said, oh, that's related to the personality. So when we are all connected to the divine, we seem more alike. And then when we are in our egoic constriction, that's when we feel a little bit more separate. So that's the lens. Then what modern psychology did is started understanding between the spirituality and the modern psychology. They realized that it's really underneath the belly. It's the motivation. Why are you motivated to behave differently? And that is out of survival instinct of security. But stepping back into the spiritual world, it's there's an aspect of this purpose, personality, and purpose. So that's a lot of the work that I do, is bringing people into awareness that the ego now is sort of being, the ego's bad, soul essence is good. And the truth is, your personality is part of your purpose. So your divine nature is actually your personality. Because each one of the personalities at the holy idea is a representation of the divine. So at the top of the diagram, at the top of the triangle, is holy love. And then at the next is holy perfection. And there's holy will, holy hope, holy origin, holy omniscience. So I'm like walking around the numbers now. Holy faith, holy wisdom or holy plan, holy truth, and then you're back to the top. So even in the Bible, it's the Bible verse that says, faith, hope, and love, and the greatest of these is love. Well, that is directly the symbology of the triangle. So faith, hope, and love, that's the triangle of the holy ideas. And so when we are in our true essence, we bring in an aspect of the divine. Like, that is your purpose, is to bring an aspect of the divine. And each of our aspects are unique. So even if you're a 2 and I'm a 2, we're not exactly alike. But we are similar in our motivation, and we're similar in our holy idea. When we get constricted, though, that motivation becomes, that's where we get into the personality types. So I can walk around the Enneagram with the personality types and just talk a little bit about those. So the 1 at the top, where the holy love is, that's the peacemaker.
Okay.
So the peacemaker sits at the top of the triangle, and they have this sort of all-world vision. So they are able to see into the other. They can see into and want others to have a voice.
Okay.
To the detriment of their own self. So what they will often do is they will sort of eject self by allowing other people to be seen and heard. The perfectionist, is motivated to do what is right and what is good. And so their lens, and we often talk about it in the Enneagram, is if the peacemaker has glasses with like a lens that's looking for harmony or peace, right? The one is looking for what is, well, in essence, they're looking for what is wrong or what is not right.
Okay.
So they're going to see what is not right. And the two's motivation is to be needed. So they will naturally see where there are needs.
So I'm a 2. I'm a 2.
Yes.
Well, I was a 2 back when I took the exam.
Yeah.
So I see a need in others. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. So the 2,
and I want to fulfill the need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
It's like you're looking. You have a radar for people's needs. It's like there's a homing device on you that's feeling, because we haven't gotten into its triads, but the 2, the helper, 2, the 3, the performer, and the 4, the individualist, are in the heart triad. So they lead with their heart.
Okay.
What that means is they're feeling into others' hearts, and the 2 will use the heart to feel into what is needed. Mm-hmm. So it's like, in a room, you can sense those that need. You can sense what they need, oftentimes even before they even know it themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is that an empath?
So it is. There's an essence of empath for anyone that's in the heart, because they have this natural ability to feel into. But there's a difference between energetic empaths and people who have that center of intelligence that they lead with.
Okay.
Because everyone has a heart center. Everyone has a gut center, and everyone has a head center. Mm-hmm. And what happens is, if we come into this world, and my tripod is actually being used, but if we come in and we have this 3-legged tripod, the head, the heart, and the gut, what happens is an experience happens, and it's like we go, that didn't feel good. That experience might be that your needs are not important. So for the 2, they will have an experience where their needs were not met. And they say, it's not good to be it's not good to have needs. And so they will pick up a center of intelligence. They'll pick up one of the legs, and what they'll do is they lean on another leg. So the heart people will lean on the heart. So now this 3-legged stool becomes a 2-legged stool. It's still there. It's actually a 2.5. It's still there, but it's not getting any weight, really. And so the heart's taking the brunt. The gut is taking the supporting role. And the head says, I'm ejecting. So
I can understand that. Yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah, that's why the head of the helper gets fuzzy. There'll be a bit of anxiety but it's
Mm-hmm.
sort of like a little bit of anxiety of like, what do I do? 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 A little overwhelm, because there is so much receiving of people's needs that there's a little bit of an overload, a little
Okay.
bit of an overload. The heart is being overloaded a bit, and the doing is being a little scattered. So oftentimes the head gets fuzzy for the twos.
Mm-hmm.
That's why a lot of people, that's why I'm an embodiment coach. I'm a yoga instructor. I'm a meditation teacher, but the Enneagram is actually, for me, and for everybody, but I use it as a system of energy. So I see it show up in people's body. I
Mm-hmm.
can feel, as an empath, I can feel where their energy is getting blocked. I can feel where it's being held, and through coaching different of the Enneagram numbers, there's sort of a profile. I
Mm-hmm.
sort of know, as a general rule, where the energy is going to get stuck for someone,
Mm-hmm.
and using meditation to help ground. So for the twos, it's about getting grounded so that energy in the head can drop down. And when the
Okay.
energy in the head gets dropped down, what happens is the belly gets more grounded, and that's when you can be present to your own self. Because for the helper, it's very difficult to come into self-care, to come
Mm-hmm.
into nurturing of
Mm-hmm.
self, because your needs, your languaging, your head, the talk is your needs don't matter.
Okay. Okay.
And so
Now,
often, and so
now, when
what's,
I took the inner Enneagram, it was in a biblical setting, and what we were
mm-hmm,
doing was trying to find the healthy balance
yes,
um, from the unhealthy balance. And
yes,
so just understanding ourselves to know when we're healthy and when we're not healthy. And
yes,
once we recognize where we were on the spectrum, then we work toward moving into the healthier stage.
yes.
So that's kind of my experience with the Enneagram.
Yeah. Do you know who Susan Stabile is?
No, I
She was
don't.
the co-author of The Road Back to You with Ian Cron, and they actually do a podcast that's part of The Road Back to You. It's a really, really good book. It's really
Okay.
easy to read, which the Enneagram is often not easy to read. Books
Mm-hmm.
on Enneagram are not easy to read, but she is a two. So I love her. Let's see if I can remember how she worded it. It's it's the difference between um, needing to be needed, wanting to be needed, and available for others' needs. Needed
Okay.
to be needed is you're in the danger zone. Um, Wanting to be needed, you're sort of, you could go either way. And then being available is in the healthy region.
Okay.
So she gave an example one time of a couple where they were, they lived in a neighborhood, and she's like, her husband's like, I'm going to Lowe's. And
Mm-hmm.
she was like, why? And the guy was like, well, the neighbor's mailbox fell down. And somebody knocked their neighbor's mailbox over. And she goes,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And he goes, well, I'm going to go to Lowe's and get a new mailbox. And she's like,
Mm-hmm.
did they ask you? And he was like, no, but I know it needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an unhealthy version
Mm-hmm.
of intrusion on others, to the point where there wasn't an ask. There was almost an unhealthy boundary. You see the
Mm-hmm.
difference?
So when you're in an unhealthy stage as a two, sometimes you infringe on others' privacy or their. I find myself doing that with my daughter. It's like I want to insist that I help her. And she's like, Mom, leave me alone. I don't need any help. But it's like I just want to make her happy. I just want to just make sure she have everything she needs. Is that in a healthy stage or unhealthy stage for a 2?
The fact that you're aware of it says that you are in, like we all are, you're aware of your egoic motivation. And that's part of what this system is. It's about becoming aware of that which we are not aware of.
Okay.
The motivations that drive us. So the helper is to feel secure. Part of the being liked, being admired, being needed means I have security. If you need me, I feel secure. Now, there's another word that has a little bit of a negative connotation, but I'll say it anyway. There's some, a 2 is naturally codependent.
Okay.
I mean, in the true definition of the word is like, if I need you to need me, there's a little bit of an essence of codependency there. Okay. But the truth is, all the numbers have codependency. It's just they were dependent on something different. So the 1 has a dependency or codependency on doing what's right. Okay. And improving. So they are, quote, addicted to improving because it's always could be better. It could be better. It could be better.
Now that's themselves they're trying to improve or improve everybody.
Well, they'll often, because they're dutiful, they'll often, their intention is to help others, but it's because their own need of trying to be right and good.
Okay.
Right. And so the 3, the performer, has a need to be successful, has a need to achieve. And so they will be codependent on results or getting things done through people, right? Okay. The 4 is the individualist, and they are motivated by being unique. And they will look for beauty. They want to see beauty in the world. And so they will be motivated by not being ordinary. So they are codependent on uniqueness, in essence.
And that's the 4?
That's the 4. That's the individualist.
Okay.
And the 5, the investigator, is the motivated to be secure. Every one of them is about security, to be secure through knowledge. And so they are codependent on information. Like if I know, then I'll be secure. To not know means I'm very vulnerable, right? If I know what is required. So they will often be very stingy with resources because I don't know how much is going to be required of me. I don't know if I'm going to have enough. So they will hoard. They're codependent on their resources.
Now, aren't the 5s also known as being avoidant?
They can be. Yeah, and that's that resource thing that I was saying. They are withdrawn. So the 9, the peacemaker, the 4, the individualist, and the 5, the investigator, they are all in the withdrawn. So they will take a step back in order they'll do that in stress. They will, or just a way of being, to allow.
So a 2 and a 5 would clash, right? A 2 and a 5.
The investigator and a helper, the helper could overwhelm. The helper would overwhelm.
I can see that happening. I think my husband is an investigator because I can see him being overwhelmed
Yeah. The twos have a lot of energy. Usually they are positive. You know, they're much like your personality. They're like, which by the way, I'm a 7 and you're a 2, and we're both in the positive outlook.
Okay.
So we're like kind of like we're like the little puppy. You know, we're like, ooh, yay. You know, we're just, you know, 2s and 5s find I mean 2s and 7s kind of find each other.
Okay.
Because of that positive outlook, and being wanting to be liked, you know, kind of like can carry the energy in the room. You know, they'll care, like they're the ones that are like kind of make people feel a little bit more at ease. The 5s are definitely more reserved, and the one thing that 5s do not like is and this is, we're talking generalities, not everyone, but emotion. So 5s often will feel overwhelmed with emotion, and the 2s can be emotional because they're in the heart. So they're feeling a lot. So they can bring some emotion that the 5s will feel a little bit overwhelmed. But that's kind of what happens sometimes with couples, is we get drawn to people that are here to teach us what we need to learn.
Now, that doesn't mean that the 5, do they enjoy the 2, or the 2 really get on the nerve of the 5?
I think this gets really individual. You know, it gets down into the individual. There are some natural conflicts, you know, that are built in. And there are some numbers, like you'll find aspects of all the numbers where there'll be some conflicts, but there are some natural conflicts built in because, you know, the 2 will keep sort of inching forward, you know, because the need to be needed, like what you're talking about with your daughter, and a 5 being withdrawn is going to naturally start taking a step back and being like, you're overwhelming me. And so, you know,
that's exactly what happened.
This could be a dance, an energetic dance of one step forward and one step back and one step forward and one step back. And so you can, that's why I call it, you know, the embodiment, because I can see the energy of the numbers moving and sometimes being symbiotic and sometimes sort of a coming against. But all the numbers, interestingly enough, except for 4s, they almost all have all 3 stances. So the assertive comes forward, the withdrawn goes back, and the dutiful goes side to side. So in other words, I can be, they're more like, what do we need? What do you need? So they can come forward or they can come back based on what is needed. The 2s are dutiful, so they can take a step back or they can take a step forward based on what the other needs. So if if the other is requiring you to be assertive, you can go assertive. If it needs to be like, okay, you know, become a little bit less, you can go less because you're feeling into what the person needs. So that's where you become symbiotic with your partner, because you have the ability to sense what he needs. Now, whether or not you can abide by that is based on how grounded you're in the moment with your own centeredness. Right?
So that's when we start talking about healthy and unhealthy states. So if I'm in an unhealthy state, I'm like really needy. I'm like, look, I need your attention now. I need your attention now. And he's like, you too much. You doing too much.
Yeah. And, you know, as a general rule, you know, like, and you can see this, right? Like people that are not healthy at all. And it's not based on the day, you know, like this day versus another day. They're just in a state of unhealth. And then there's, you know, even when you're in a state of health, you can have bad days. So energy isn't static. but in the work of spiritual development, as a general rule, when you come from an unhealthy to, mid to healthy, it's called the ascension path. So you're what we're talking about is filling with light. You embody more of the divine light.
Okay.
And as you embody more and more of the divine light, you're ascending to healthier states. So even on your bad day, you're not dropping down to the bottom. You're still dropping, So that's why, we in spiritual work, we call it leveling up. You have like, it depends on if you're Christian, I was raised Southern Baptist, right? So it's like, you would come and do a profession of faith. And I was actually thinking of this recently where I remember watching others like that. Nobody talks about it, but it's like, that was an energy healing.
Okay.
When you walk down the aisle and you professed your faith, I could feel it. I still remember. Like when they say born again, it's like you feel like a different person because the energy you like embodied, God. You knew you were connected to God, and there's a change in you. That's why they call it born again, I guess.
Born again.
But every time you have this energy come through you, which is really like the divine, you move up to another level of health.
And that's self-actualization. When you start knowing yourself, is that when you're becoming more attuned to who you are, your personality?
Yeah, I guess that word would fit.
But you said it can fluctuate daily.
On one day you can feel you just have more energy, right? You'll have more energy. You feel more connected to nature. You feel more connected to yourself. You feel more connected to God. And then, maybe something happened and all of a sudden, like, you're kind of a little bit like, you're a little scattered. It's a little scattered. And it might be harder to pray or whatever your practice is. It might be harder to, drop into your meditation, or you may not want to do your spiritual practice. Maybe you're just like, I'm not going to, I don't know if I believe in church, or whatever your version of it is. And then, you plug back in, you do whatever your practices are. If you're a Christian, you're reading the Bible. If you're, another faith, you're doing the practice to bring you back to your grounded source, back to God.
Just trying to ground yourself.
Yeah.
So we left off at 5, the investigator.
Yep. So the 6 is the loyalist, and they have a need to feel secure. So they are going to look outside of themselves. They are going to be codependent on other people to validate their decisions. The 7 is motivated to avoid pain. So they will be addicted to distraction. They will be codependent on distractions. The 8 is motivated by not being controlled. And so they will be codependent on intensity. They want to feel alive. So they will be.
Could I be a 2 and an 8?
Well, the 2, and this is what's interesting. I sort of had a little bit of a download when I was in Clubhouse one time running a room, and somebody asked, like, can you be more than one number? And it was very clearly said, like, no, you can only be one number because that's the representation of the divine, the holy ideas. There is a relationship, though, to 5 numbers off the bat. So if you are a 2, then you're naturally then, again, the shadow. So the 2 is going to have a relationship to the 1 and the 3. And then they're going to go to the 8. They're going to go to the 8 in stress, and they go to the 4, the individualist or shadow. There you go. The 4 in growth.
Wow.
So you go from the dutiful,
Okay,
heart-centered, to the most assertive on the chart. So
that's in stress.
Yep. And this is where you can get your power by coming into the 8. And then you come from the 2 into the 4, which teaches you to step into self, because the 4, the individualist, right? They're about unique individual. So you step out of being codependent on others and you step into self as you realize and you step into your own uniqueness.
I think that's where I'm at right now.
Mm.
Now, I can see myself years ago when I first took, that was 95, 96.
Oh,
I
wow.
was definitely a helper. Very, very codependent, very needy. But as I've gotten older, I can see myself moving into the 4, where, you know how you feel like, I know who I am now, you know? Nobody can tell me who I am. I know who I am.
Yeah. Well, and I don't even know that I love the words growth and stress anymore. Just because one of the things that, and they are your growth and stress numbers, but even though, like, let's say the 8 is your stress number, it teaches you something.
Okay.
So I even look at what you're doing, with women that have experienced domestic violence. Right? The 8 is the challenger, also known as the protector.
Oh, wow.
The 8 is the one who doesn't want to be vulnerable. So they're motivated not to be vulnerable. But like I said, for the need, they see the vulnerable. They have a keen sense for who is vulnerable. And they will use that power. They will use that assertive energy to protect those that need to be protected.
I feel like Wonder Woman right now.
Yeah, so you can see that even though it, quote, may have been your stress number, it was teaching you something and you have access to it. That in this, just your innate helper, codependent-ish, needing to be needed, it would be really hard to step into the power needed for something as heavy as domestic violence.
You're right.
Because also the 2, as well as the 7, as well as the 9, are conflict avoidant. Because they're in the positive outlook, they don't want to see the negative. So it would be hard for you to just, in your innate, Pollyanna-ish self, to go, I'm going to go address this really heavy topic. And I'm going to, let's talk about it. Let's get it out in the open. We're not going to hide this is not going to do anyone any good to hide this under the cover. So that's where, that's where the energy of these other numbers, that's how I see the energy system working, because you can just reach out into that 8 and pull that energy in on you and embody that energy. And you don't necessarily, once you feel it in your body, you don't have to go to stress to tap into it. So that's when people say, like, oh, well, I'm more than one number. I'm like, well, you've learned to incorporate the aspects of the other numbers, but that doesn't mean that you become it. When we come into wholeness, we are able to see all. And that's really the empathy of the Enneagram, is the circle is we are all one. What is in you is in me. What is in me is in you. So yes, I have an aspect of the 8 in me. I have the 2. I have the 5. I am all those numbers, and my purpose, my personality came in unique because I have something to deliver through it. My unique way of seeing the world, expressing in the world, brings that uniqueness through, and it's coming through my personality. So it's not
That's
a bad
so good. It's so good.
Yeah,
I love this conversation.
Yeah, it's empowering. It takes this, we're wrong, we need to be fixed, you know, we're broken. We're not broken. We're not broken.
This is good.
Yeah. And for the ladies that you serve, right? Like, you see that. You see that this might be a moment in time for them, but the essence of them is not broken.
Amen.
Exactly. No one can break you, because you are divine on earth. How could the divine be broken? Yeah.
You're preaching tonight, sister. I love it. I love it. I love it. Wow. I didn't expect it to be so enlightening. You know what I'm saying? I knew we were going to have a good conversation, but I didn't think I would feel like Wonder Woman after talking about it, because I didn't understand the dynamics of it. And it's so clear to me now. The exact time I moved into 8, I was in a very stressed way.
Yeah.
And I took on some strength from somewhere.
Yes.
And then once I've been working with domestic violence for the last 7 years, then it's become part of me.
Exactly.
That strength, I pulled it into myself.
Yeah, I'm going to dip into another topic for a second.
Okay.
And we didn't talk about this, but I have a feeling we're going to have another Insta Live for this.
Okay.
The other thing that I do is something called sacred contracts. And so I can't show you this whole thing, but this is the wheel. It's called the chart of origin. And it is, it's a way to look at what your divine calling is when you came in. Okay. And there are 12 archetypes that are part of you. So when someone describes you, you know, there are descriptors that they may use. And so they're innate to you. An archetype has, it's sort of like a cosmic energy about it. So if I say geek, you have an image in your mind. If I say Don Juan, you have an image in your mind. If I say warrior, if I say victim. So there are 4 survivor archetypes that everyone has: the child, the prostitute, the victim, and the saboteur.
Okay.
The child is the guardian of innocence. The victim, saboteur, is the guardian of choice. The victim is the guardian of self-esteem, and the prostitute is the guardian of faith. Now, interestingly enough, the victim, when the opposite energy of the victim is the warrior. And so what I'm starting to develop is, that's why I feel like each Enneagram number. So if you met another 2, you wouldn't be exactly like that other 2. In fact, you may feel very different than the other 2, but you would still be motivated by that need.
Okay.
Some 2s don't have that warrior energy.
Okay.
Even though they have access to the 8, they just won't take it on. they may with their children, they'll lose their temper.
Mm-hmm.
They'll spat out, but they don't innately have it.
Okay.
That's what I feel like, that there could be a whole discussion about how do these women take the victim, that archetype that we all have, that's going to be so, so strong for them in that moment of desperation,
Mm-hmm.
and move that energy to the warrior. How do they get access to that warrior energy that's going to help that victim stand up?
Wow.
And have that self-esteem to stand in themselves.
That's so important.
It's so important. It's so important. And then the other ones that come along, because all the survivors will play together. The child, right? So the child, the child's going to be there, right? And it's one of the toughest ones to get to grow up, because the child vacillates between this needing to be taken care of, and this independence. So there's this pendulum that goes, you'll see that some people have a child that's like, I'm just a grown up, and they sort of skip childhood. You see that a lot in children of domestic violence or children of addiction, where they had to become the adult very quickly. So they just skip their childhood and they lose that innocence. So their path to wholeness is to take that adult and move it a little bit more to that childlike quality of learning how to be dependent on somebody.
Okay.
Versus the one that like sort of abdicates all responsibility and says, I'm just going to be dependent on. Like those people, it would be very difficult for them to leave their spouse because they feel like they can't go it alone. Their child can't imagine being an adult. How would I survive?
And so many people live in those, you said archetypes?
Yes, everyone has it.
Okay.
Everyone has those four.
Okay.
And that's what starts playing, that child, that victim. Okay. And then we've got the prostitute that says, I don't have faith in myself. How am I going to sell out? Am I going to sell out? Am I going to sell myself for security? Am I going to eject my life out of the equation to feel financially secure?
So the goal is to understand each archetype?
Yeah, and to grow in the shadow, when we live out of the shadow, which is again like sort of that unhealth, that you move into the light side, and the light side is where you get that power. So when I hear you talk, where you're like, I remember the moment, that's your survivor archetypes that dropped in, and all of a sudden you get like the power of them.
Okay.
You get like, you feel it. That's the embodiment. Know the moment that it happens. Sometimes you know the moment because all of a sudden it just drops in and you know it, or it's a time span.
Well, I didn't recognize it until tonight, what it was.
Yeah.
When you start telling me, when I moved from that 2 to the 8, and I seen it. But without you telling it to me, I just thought I all of a sudden woke up one morning and say, this is what I want to do. But I didn't realize it was what was going on in my life at the time that pushed me into that other personality.
Oh, yeah.
I'm
so what's
excited about this.
Yeah, what's interesting is that sometimes talking about it from the Enneagram makes it's easier from the Enneagram. And sometimes when we need to tease out those energies a little bit, the archetypes feel like it gets us a little bit more into minutia.
Okay. So it's two separate things that we're talking about?
It's two separate things.
Okay.
I'm just starting to bring them, like, in my work, I'm starting to bring them together, like to see how they like play with each other. You know,
Wow.
what I would guess is that you had a sacred contract to do the work you're doing, and you had access to this warrior energy that, like, you stepped into your highest potential. It would be really interesting to see which archetype is in your 10th house, which is your highest potential, because you may have really stepped into the archetype that's sitting there. That's what it sort of feels like to me. That's what often happens is, you know, we have these life experiences that are not very pleasant, but they also propel us toward our destiny. And that to me is part of the work with the sacred contracts, is when we start understanding that life isn't done to us, it's done for us. It is in the higher good. If we can just allow it to work through us and not let it get so constricted, then life like becomes much more beautiful, and we just like get all this power, and it just gets downloaded, and then we're able to express and to live and to, and this is really what, you know, when people talk about what is my purpose, it's like, you know, your purpose most of the time is not to do anything necessarily. It's who are you meant to be?
Wow.
Like, who is the essence of who you are to be? And yes, that might mean that you're going to do something. You know, your being might create and do something, but it's not from the doing, it's from the being.
Oh, I'm loving what you're saying. I'm loving you getting hearts. Somebody's sending you hearts. So, okay. So, Sandra, tell us, how do you, you as a coach, what do you do to help people get to that place?
Okay. So if they're interested in, sometimes I just work with what's happening in their life, and I can help move that energy through them. If they're interested in the Enneagram, that just helps us get a common language. So it helps, like, just like when we were talking about, you know, the energy of what was the 2 and the 8, like what happens is it makes it very efficient.
Yes.
Because then we have a common language. And there's just something about the Enneagram that just makes it go quicker. So I just help, I help people connect their life, like kind of what happened to you, with the Enneagram. So all of a sudden it's like, there's a neutrality. I like, you know what? That's your 6 showing up. That's your need to get support outside of you. And then like, oh yeah. It helps us neutralize that which we don't like about ourselves, and realize it's there to serve us, you know. And then from the sacred contracts perspective, I help them, if they really want to get into purpose and really dig in more spiritual work. That's definitely more spiritual work. With the sacred contracts, I can help them look at their purpose, what's there. But just like your passion is women who are suffering, my passion is mothers who are holding their children's pain. So especially women that, you know, their children are suffering from mental illness, their children are suffering from addiction, you know, or just something that's painful. And that codependency thing, that empath, we talked about empath. You know, often mothers who are empathic have a very difficult time with that energy connection with their child, especially those that have children who are suffering. So in the healing world, what we know for sure, and I've experienced it 100%, is that we as mothers, when we heal, the container is built that allows the child to heal. So when we rise, they rise. Now, they have free will. They still have to choose, but our healing will assist in the healing of our children.
I believe that.
We have a nation of suffering adolescents and suffering young adults. It's an epidemic quite frankly.
Because
And
we have unhealed parents.
yes,
Yes.
yes, yes. There's a lot of, the world's heavy right now. And so we can't expect for our children to know and feel secure when they don't, when they feel our anxiety, it's just propelling the anxiety of the world. So especially if your child's empathic and you are empathic. So I help them really develop and understand their energy systems. So that's a big piece of how your energy moves from from those stances, right? From like when you're 2 and you go to the 8, people know it because
Yeah.
you're very dutiful to this, very assertive. And so when you're having, when your household has got a lot of pain and anxiety in it, and you're switching energy systems, like you go from, you know, the victim to the persecutor to the rescuer, like that happens in a family system. And that's when it gets really tough to deal with these topics, you know?
Yeah. Because
So
they don't understand what's going on. Because they've always
right.
seen you one way, and then all of a sudden you're something else. But they don't realize that you are moving into other, for
Yeah.
survival purposes. Is that what it is?
Yeah. In the heat of the moment, you know, like what we were talking about, where that assertive nature was serving you, there's times where it's not serving you.
Okay.
And so levels of awareness for the Enneagram is, first level of awareness is how do I perceive myself? Second level is how do others perceive me? And the third level of awareness is how do others perceive themselves in the presence of me? So when we start realizing our impact on our children, and I had to step into that full and hard. That's when I stepped into my Enneagram work because I wanted to leave my family. I mean, literally, I was in pain. So my 7 nature was like, let's leave, right? And I was like, oh my gosh. And I realized that 2 of my children were very heart-centered and they were serving me. And I knew that I could be very codependent on that.
Wow.
And I had to release them energetically to allow them. They were young, you know, they were young adults. I had to let them fly. So I had to learn to heal myself. You know, I had to break that codependency. And so when we as parents learn how to sit in grief, how we have to learn to sit in the unknown, we have to learn to sit in our own anxiety. When we model for our children how we can live life on life's terms, even when it's not good. And they see the strength in that. And that is what, as we get strong, our children get strong because
You're right.
because
And
we're
I
modeling.
think that's exactly what happened. I became an empty nester in 2011. 2012, I was just, oh my God. 2013 is when I started the domestic violence. So once I released, because I had to release them.
Yes.
So that's when I guess I picked up this other personality type.
Yeah.
Because I no longer was dependent or codependent on them.
Yeah.
Because they had to move on to their own lives.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
Yeah. And some, you know, when it comes to mental health and addictions, a lot of these young adults aren't leaving the home. So they're literally in the home. And it's very difficult to maintain energy when they're in the home with you. So
especially if you're codependent and they have a codependency.
Yes.
So you're leaning on them.
Yes, you're right. You're like a fishing, you know, lure or whatever, the bobber, you know, they're up, you're up. They are down, you're down. You're just both doing this. You're doing this in the water together to a certain extent.
Oh, wow.
And so that's what I help.
I love this.
Yeah.
I love what you're doing.
I am a certified family recovery specialist, so I can help, those parents. But what's becoming pretty evident is it's not just in the actual addiction, it's mental health, because it's all wrapped up together. So that's my passion, but I'm also very passionate about the spiritual development. So a lot of times it overlaps.
Wow. Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't overlap, sometimes it overlaps, but we're all on a spiritual journey, whether we recognize it or not.
You're right. You're right. Well, you're a very special person to know, because I really believe God is speaking to you. I feel really full right now because you have blessed us tonight. You have blessed us so much.
Thank
Wow,
you.
this has been amazing. This has been an amazing conversation. And I hope that you and I can continue doing these. Even if it's just once a month, maybe we can just do a session. Oh, you're getting hearts. They saying yes.
That's awesome. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
Oh, great. Oh, I would love this. I would love this. So, Sandra, can you tell us how we can contact you?
Absolutely. So, it's Envision. So it's ENN, like the Enneagram, Vision Coach.com.
Okay. And we'll put it in the comments.
Okay.
So, oh my gosh, this has been an amazing night.
And I also do, myself and another person does a meditation every morning starts at 7:25 on Clubhouse. I don't know if anybody's you are on Clubhouse.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
I'm sure there's a lot of people that watch us.
Eastern Standard Time.
Okay.
On Clubhouse, I do a meditation every morning. And every once in a while I do the Enneagram room. I haven't been very good at having an Enneagram room, but I'm going to try to get back to doing that. And
well, even if we can do it here on live, we can try to do that.
Yeah, no, I think the live works better, actually.
Yeah, I love this.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of good feedback while you were on.
Good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much. And you and I connect and get this ball rolling, because this is good. This is good stuff.
Yep. This is
good
stuff.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your work.
Okay. Have a good night.
All right. See ya.
Bye-bye.